I've run out of steam, Minister. I'm tired of the spin. Two practical questions. No, you didn't give any spin there, no, but there's a spin in relation to public health medicine through the private hospitals. Yeah, that's certainly a spin. How many hospitals signed up to the deal for the 3 months at the 115 million? Was it 17, 18? How many? You know, exactly how many? And is there a service level agreement now in place with all of those hospitals?
I think it's 18 hospitals, Deputy Connolly. If not, I'll write you. But my memory is it's 18 hospitals, and my understanding is the service level agreements are being finalised still.
Okay, so we're almost at the end, and I thank you that you're not renewing it and you stopped it and you're going to look at the whole thing.
Yes.
But after 3 months, we've no service level agreement in place, and we don't know precisely how many hospitals signed up. For a payment, I think, of 115 million per month to leave the hospitals by and large empty. 19. And I've pointed out already that for example, just one example, the rehab unit in Merlin Park was stopped, full stop. Patients transferred to the private hospital. Inexplicably, the nurses sent into the regional to go from ward to ward. I've no idea. I don't know who's behind that decision. I don't know who's going to be held responsible for that decision. Luckily, that's now been undone, and rehab is moving back to Merlin Park. So you can see my scepticism with all of this. I come from a city with a public hospital, Merlin Park in the regional, and 2 private hospitals. And I've watched the systematic running down of the public system and the building up of the private system. And at a point where the private hospitals, quite a lot of them were in trouble, we jump in to bail them out. And we also insist that the hospitals are kept semi-empty. It's just mind-boggling. It's absolutely mind-boggling. But what I want to, one more practical question, and then I'm going to make a few general comments. HIQA, I understood you were making progress in relation to the private hospitals coming under HIQA's remit. Where is that at? When will the private hospitals come under HIQA's remit?
I'll have to revert to the Deputy. It's done under the patient licensing bill, but I'll just have to revert to the Deputy.
Yeah, that's okay, I appreciate that. But it's something that quite a lot of TDs have raised. I understood going back over a year ago, it was almost at the point where it was going to be done. And here we are, having done all of this and given public money, and they're not even under the remit of HIQA. Now, actually, I find myself in the unusual position that I supported the private consultants in relation to their misgivings about this deal and the way they were treated and the fact that they couldn't see their patients. I fully understood that and I supported them. What I'm very concerned about now is that you're going forward with a spin, the government generally, with the active help of Fianna Fáil. And Deputy Donnelly's speech earlier on really worried me in terms of the direction of where we're going with public money. And we're going to build up the National Treatment Purchase Fund, and we're going to use more and more private hospitals. Now, you may recall the 2016 election, and various leaders went to Galway and said the accident and emergency wasn't fit for purpose. The future Taoiseach told us it wasn't fit for purpose. The current Taoiseach told us it wasn't fit for purpose. It's still not fit for purpose. No progress has been made. Would you be in a position to tell me what is the position with the accident and emergency in Galway? Has planning permission been given? Is it going to be built?
When I last inquired about this, just before the COVID pandemic, Deputy, was that the papers are due to be lodged with On Board Planola in relation to planning permission. It is funded in the capital plan. It is badly needed. Everyone's been saying that. I'm waiting for the planning to be granted and the funding is in place to deliver it. And yes, it is the intention to build it.
Well, I left earlier on to go up and check, and I saw a press release from the organisation. Planning permission was about to go in then. That was 2016. It's now 2020. Now, I forgive management for the last few months, obviously, but it's inexplicable to me. And we have 150 acres, at least that's what I quote, but lately I heard the sale to themselves say there's 180 acres in Merlin Park. It makes absolute sense to build a brand new hospital. And we saw that, we saw the options appraisal, and I attended a meeting outside there in the AV room, and there was very little time difference between how long it would take to build a brand new hospital and the time it was going to build a new accident and emergency. And it seemed to be an utter waste of public money that we're going down 2 parallel roads. And I would ask for sense to prevail and look at building a public hospital new in Merlin Park Hospital, where there's 180 acres. That's number one. Number two, the accident and emergency. The working title of this is, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Chair, but the working title of this session is Emergency Department Bed Capacity. Okay. Okay, well, so we look at Dr. Fergal Hickey, May 19, over a year ago. He told us that structural inefficiency in the health service, including 29 emergency and departments for a population of 4.85 million, and the employment of agency staff at a cost much greater than regular staff, and they often don't possess the skills. These were just some of the issues he raised, and he was only one of many consultants. He's up in Sligo. In the case of a person over the age of 75 waiting on a trolley for a period of over 12 hours, this doctor says there's little chance of that 75-year-old returning to pre-admission function level, and therefore he's most likely to need long-term care directly as a result of being on a trolley for a particular period of time. Emergency departments have become warehousing departments for all conditions, which is a move away from what the department was supposed to be. Every single year, 350 people will die, 350 premature deaths from overcrowding in accident and emergency departments and directly related to their time on trolleys. We know all these figures. I fast forward to just recent announcement from Dr. Fergal Hickey. The health executive is passively allowing a return to the status quo. The concern is that we are seeing a rise of patients on trolleys at a time when there is still very little activity, elective activity. God knows what's going to happen when winter comes. This should be a cause of major concern to the public. To have anybody on a trolley past the point of admitting the patient to hospital is a cause for concern. We should have a zero tolerance, and so on and so on. And the consultants have also called for an urgent response in the manner that you responded to COVID, that we would respond to what's happening in our hospitals. Now, having listened to the whole debate tonight, and it's one of the advantages of coming at the end, I'm afraid I'm not filled with hope. In fact, I'm more than ever convinced that you're going down the road of further privatisation. Buying more space in private hospitals and the National Treatment Purchase Fund, as opposed to putting in the necessary beds in the hospitals, which is approximately 2,500 beds, filling the posts, employing doctors, employing nurses, and improving their conditions. Now, that might take a little longer than I want, but I don't see any evidence of that, Minister. Absolutely none. I see a commitment to privatisation. Now tell me I'm wrong, please, and I'll give you a little chance to tell me that.
Well, you just factually are, Deputy, and I say that very respectfully, because every single year that I've been the Minister, the number of beds in the Irish Health Service, in the public health service, has increased. I won't waste your time reading them out, but inpatient and day case. Every single year I've been Minister, the number of nurses in the public health service, doctors in the public health service has increased. Now, I take the criticism, which I think is valid, that it may not have happened at the pace that you want, and I'll also take the criticism, because it's the truth, that we've never gotten enough new beds into the system to get ahead of the legitimate issues Dr. Hickey presents. But let me say this, and what could be my last time exchanging with you in this role. The challenge is, as you said, that as the rest of society tries to move on from the pandemic, and that's entirely understandable, we need to actually continue to talk about health as an emergency, and we need to continue to approach it in the same way that we're approaching the COVID emergency, because and there is, in fairness to everybody working in the HSE, the hospitals, the doctors, the nurses, there is a willingness from all of those people to do things differently. I've received a letter from Dr. Emily O'Connor, the president of that association, Dr. Hickey's, with suggestions as to how this winter can be different, and it could be. And it really could be. But it is going to involve things like why in your own city, and I happen to know of this, in your own city are so many residents from a nursing home ending up in an ED every winter. That's not a criticism of the nursing home. We need to put the supports in to stop them getting there. So there are things that will need to be done differently. Bed capacity is definitely one. And just on the Merlin Park question, which I know is a big issue in Galway, my view is that it's not either or. I genuinely believe a city like Galway and a region like Galway is going to require a purpose-built hospital on the Merlin Park site. And is going to also require the Galway University Hospital as well, an elective hospital for the city and a new emergency department. I genuinely believe it.
Thank you, Minister.